Mr. Muhammed Rudman is President, Nigerian Telecom Association, NIRA. Please come sit to that table. If you know the kind of content this man is carrying, you will clap better than this. He is an encyclopedia of the industry. MD of Internet Test. You have to continue. Too many. Okay, and then Benewa. I'm sure Benewa is still online. Okay, Benewa is online. Please appreciate Benewa. He's the Assistant Director of Egovernment, Development and Regulations NITDA. He's one of the panelists. The lead paper is going to be done by Wole Abu, Managing Director of Telecom. Wole Abu. Okay. Yes, please. You are the one. You know why? It must be another Indaboski. Liquid fire, liquid telecom. They sound alike. A round of applause for him, please. So the other panelists are, aside from the Ewah, Modupe Okeowo, Country Manager, Konnect Nigeria, Konnect Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, all of them connect together. Only you, all those countries. Okay, you must connect all of us today. And Engineer Uchenna Onweluzo, Delivery Program Leader, Nokia. Okay, please a round of applause for him. If you clap very well, you get a brand new Nokia phone. If you believe that, you're on your own. Please give me a round of applause, please. Let's give me a round of applause. And Professor Olaika David West, Associate Dean and Professor of Information Systems, Lagos Business School, will be joining us live and virtually. Let's give him a round of applause, please. What we are saying is we are bringing Lagos Business School here. And last but not the least, Idongesit Udoh, Country Lead and Program Advisor, UK Government Global Digital Access Program. If you clap very well, you get a visa to UK. Please give him a round of applause. I mean, this is one of us, doing us proud. Okay, so for this entire session, we're going to have 30 minutes, and your time starts now. Ladies and gentlemen, help welcome the chairman himself as he takes over.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll commence immediately since we have 30 minutes. Can Mr. Wole please present the lead paper? Then we can commence from there. Thank you. Okay, here's the mic.
Thank you very much. Could you put up my presentation? Thank you. Please, technology, if we're talking about technology, I expect technology to work here. Thank you. Please move on quickly. I'll take about 15, maybe 10 minutes to quickly go through that. I don't look like that. That was my COVID look. Okay, so I'll just have three main themes to present in this lead paper. The first will be, I'll just talk about the technological evolution. We're talking about technology, and I know that in this room, it's not everybody that acknowledges what technology, how technology has evolved. So I'll quickly show that. Then we'll talk about the e-governance, the theme of the paper itself, and some of the use cases. So, you know, technology is started evolving from time immemorial. Move on, please. If you had a click, I would have been doing it myself. Okay, put it up there. So we started from the hunting era, then we moved to the agric revolution, and today we are in what we call the fourth industrial revolution. Basically, this thing started with mechanization. When we had the industrial revolution, we moved to the use of machines. And with what technology does is that in every era, when it changes, it will transform the business model. For example, when it was farming, you needed labor. You needed both two things for agri, land, labor. So it created the slave trade, basically. So it was because they needed bodies to work. Nobody would willingly go into the hot sun and spend the whole day tilling before. You had to force people, even till today. That changed when the Industrial Revolution came. There were now machines. So that created the automobile industry. Horses became just for sport, and you now had machines. Of course, electricity came, then you now had power plants, and cities expanded around power plants, and you now started having industries. Then you now have ICT, which brought about connectivity, and you have several other things. I think in the last 40 years now, we've seen how connectivity has transformed the world, which is why you have people watching us online now and being able to do everything we're doing here. Some of the drivers, so just move to the next slide, please. In this next slide, please permit me to just be here so that I can see what I'm presenting. So most of the technology drivers, typically, you have cloud technology, you've got blockchain, cyber security, connectivity itself, 5G, biometrics. These are the little things that have combined to create what we are calling the fourth industrial revolution today. Next slide, please. And because of that, you have a way of transforming businesses now. Societies are being transformed, and that is what is leading us to what we're talking about now. Industries have changed. There are several industries that are existing. I mean, many of you here are running your business on cloud. We're talking about running elections with technology. These things were not happening even 20 years ago. So, because society is now transforming, we're coming to this concept. We're now beginning to examine even our governments. In development, you have three key partners. The government, of course, the private sector, and the academia. Someone already alluded to the fact that in this occasion, we didn't have the academia. So I would like the summit organizers to note this, because you can't develop by government alone, you can't develop by the academia alone, neither can the private sector do it. It has to be a tripod. Next slide. So, click it. So basically, I don't need to define e-government again, everybody has done it. Move on, please. But there are four things, there's a framework for e-governance. First, you have to be present on the web. You need to have a presence. You can't say you have the E there, basically means that you are somewhere that people can reach. Then, you've got to be able to interact with your citizens. And this is basic things like you go to a website and you download a form and you complete it and maybe do something. Or you go to a website and you download information. So that's the second leg. In the first leg, that's what the first panel talked about. The key success factors, there are basic things like bandwidth, connectivity, being able to even have that presence. Because if you don't have the digital infrastructure, then you don't even have the advantage. Then the third leg is, of this ladder is being able to transact. That's where we start thinking about network reliability, resilience, cyber security, data privacy, and all those policies that make you comfortable with transacting start seeing security becoming more important in today's world. Then, of course, you now talk about integration of those services. So today you've got the customs, you've got CAC, you've got the MNOs, you've got the banks, you've got national driver's license. Each of them is a database, but they are not connected together. So when the FIRS creates its own portal, they are not thinking about customs. When the Lagos State creates their own, they are not thinking about anybody else. Everybody is building a silo. So eventually you still have a problem. So interoperability now becomes the ultimate state. So that's the framework. Please move to the next level. So, the lead paper is best practices in e-government. So what is a best practice? The definition is actually very clear. When you say something is best practice, it means, let me just quickly, there are a couple of points. It means that, one, you can be increasing the efficiency as you keep using this system. Two, it is standardized. Three, it results in a better partnership between public and private sector, etc. I will now look at some models of, please move on, you can skip this slide, I'll just go straight to 3 best practice models. The first one is the VBP model, which is the variety and best practice. This is what they use in the UK. So basically this one means that you must have an outcome. You must have a clear outcome for any process. There are many things inside, but this lecture is not to make you an expert in this. The second model is the civic idea. This is what is used in Dubai, in the UAE, sorry. It's citizen-driven. Everything is hierarchical. It starts with your ID. So it's based upon the citizen ID. In fact, civic means citizen, something for ID, and all that. It's actually an acronym. That's what's used in Dubai. And so it's hierarchical. Once you have your ID, you can log into any government ID. The first thing it asks you, it gives you ID, just like like a simple log-on in private sector. Then the third one is what they call the strategic framework for best practices. This is what uses the EU and Norway and most of the Scandinavian countries. So this is broken into 2 parts, the front end and the back end, where you have your strategy, your vision for the country, your strategic objectives, etc. at the front end. Then at the back end, you've got guidelines, you've got all that. So these are the 3 models that they use to drive e-governance around the world. And move on, please. Use cases in Africa, of course, you can, all across. Today, you can use it to deliver healthcare, deliver transport, deliver education, anything at all. Move on, please. This is for elections. I don't know, we all followed the Kenya elections recently, and enough has been said about Nigerian elections, how we came. I think the very first speaker, Ogala, elaborated very much on that, so I won't touch on it. Then in health, this is another use case. In the UK, there's a smart ambulance that interacts between the hospital and the traffic system so that they can take the shortest possible route to the end, and they actually know where the green lights and the red lights are, where there's traffic and all that. So it's all integrated with artificial intelligence. Move on. Of course, healthcare, a couple of companies are also doing great work in Africa, in healthcare. Everywhere now, we're beginning to see more of these development initiatives, especially in education and healthcare, being driven by that. Move on. I don't want to dwell on this, it's been flogged already about it. I will round up with this slide. Move on. For me, can look at the past, but if we want to talk about the MDGs today, the biggest problem we face in Nigeria today is hunger, there's insecurity, and of course we need to develop ourselves. In terms of hunger, you have to produce food. To produce food, you need land, you need people. One of the biggest problems for anybody in agri today are two things. You don't even know the property you can use for farming. You don't even know where they are. Simple blockchain. There's a company called the Landlords. You can Google it, TLW.com. In China, what they've done is that they've mapped the entire China. All kinds of property. You want 1,000 hectares for farming, you want anything. You go online, either as a buyer or as a seller, and everything is there. In 15 minutes, you can get everything. Supply chain management of everything you put into agri, etc., can be done. Of course, and citizen action. Security, this is something that we all know. I don't know how many of you know that this GSM phone that you have has programmed in it 112. It is actually hard-coded into the GSM protocol. You do 112, it's an emergency number on every network, even if you don't have airtime, even if you don't have coverage on your primary network. Yes. So each phone you have here is a reporting tool and a policeman. So these are simple things that can be integrated. All you need is a call center and people and the response team. That should be done. Then, of course, in education, connectivity. You can't have a country like this. We're talking about rural areas. We're talking about developing country, and people don't have internet. You don't have enough teachers to cover that gap. But you've got 100 million phones, and each phone can take content. Imagine how that's a teacher already. We have tried some of this in liquid. I don't want to market our company, but since people sold APC, I might as well sell liquid. You know? We've connected over 40,000 schools in South Africa, and we're in the process of collaborating with WACREN, which is the West African Research and Education Institute, NITDA, to actually prioritize schools to support the National Broadband Plan, to connect schools, hospitals to the internet. Because without connectivity today, we are not even talking about e-government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my friend and brother, Mr. Wole Abu, for the lead paper. So, because of time, we'll go straight into questions. He has raised some pertinent issues regarding government in Nigeria. I don't know whether Mr. Bernard is here from NITDA online. You see, if he's still online, please, he raised an important concern regarding data. I mean, all our data is operating in silos. You can know that for things to happen in e-governance, we have to have single identity and you don't have to replicate. So we have our registration with immigration. You want to have a national passport, you have to have NIM registration with NIMC, you have to have FRS for, what do they call it, federal road safety, yes, for driver's license. So, Mr. Bernard, are you with us? Yes. Yes, in 2020, the federal government had a master plan for e-government. Yeah, I said in 2020, the federal government had a master plan for e-government, right? At what level are you now in terms of harmonizing all this data, data that we have operating in silos, citizens' data, so that citizens can have one identity, because that's what's happening in Estonia, for example. If you register only once, you have your data, you use it for almost everything. That is your national ID. So what is government doing about that, and what level are we in?
Question, but I got the overall idea about the extent to which we are regarding interoperability of data that resides among different entities, right? So that is work in progress. There has been a concerted attempt attempt to harmonize disparate data sets owned by different MDAs. Most of the most talked about data sets, of course, that are mentioned here, like the IMSI, identity, right? Those from population, commission, and the likes of that. But from our position in NITDA, we recognize that this interoperability or the ability for data to migrate from one entity to the other and eventually enable common services, we need to ensure that the right frameworks, data governance are put in place. And that's the focus on the second phase of the Egovernment master plan. The first one, we focus largely around providing draft frameworks and building capacity across different sections of the public service. But now and because some progress has been made around harmonizing some data sets, we are now looking at how we can institute data governance measures, right? How to create really a bigger national data strategy, which is being worked on, right? Would not only enable such data interoperability, but also pave the way for value creation from data, recognizing different data sets, from government administrative data to other new data sources that can also be used, not just for government, but for the digital economy, right?
So I think there is interoperability framework in NITDA, right? 2018. Have you done anything? Because what you just said now, really, is there any progress we have made in that interoperability, or is it we are still where we are since 2020? That's what we wanted to hear.
And let me make a quick point too regarding creating value out of data. Yes, earlier on we listened to the actually alluding to that. One key factor for a strong e-governance system is ability for different actors, like those in the private sector, to access government data and create value, or add value to it for the benefit of government itself and society.
Okay,
So that is very important.
No problem. Thank you, my brother, Dr. Bernard. To succeed, you have to have identification for every single citizen in the country, because there is a saying that only what can be measured can be improved. And as we speak now, most of the measurements and statistics that we're receiving for Nigeria, even though we have the National Bureau of Statistics, some of the statistics, we get them from foreign organizations. So for example, we know that we have 18 million children out of school. And in reality, the records from the government side is different from that record. So I think first thing first, for any e-government to really succeed in Nigeria, we need to have the fundamentals, the backbone, which is identification of citizens. And because if you identify those citizens, that is the only way you can now build on it, so that citizens with their ID can log in, and with that interoperability. So let me start from my far left, the UK advisor, Mr. Udoh. He has been in the ecosystem for long. What do you think Nigeria is doing right or is doing wrong when it comes to the national identification system? What do you think we can do to improve that? Because I think that's the fundamental. What do you think?
Thank you very much. You're very right. I've been around in the ecosystem for a while, and we've worked together a couple of times. There is, when it comes to e-government, there is a country that fascinates me sometimes. Permit me not to just talk about the UK now. And that is Singapore. There's something particular about them when it comes to identification government. So they have this portal where they call My Info. And every citizen has their info on it. Info in the real sense of the word info. And so when they go online, they want to do any registration. They don't need to impute that data anymore. They simply call their info from there and can use it across multiple government portals, websites. And I think that is the way to go. If you also look at the portal they have, Sign Pass, there is the Singapore Pass. It's a digital pass, and this goes back to identification. Citizens have their pass on it, digital pass on it, and can use it in over 60 government departments, digital platforms. They don't need to type in information, just a single pass. Every single registration or purchase or service delivery they want to get, they get from there. And I think that is a good platform to take a leaf from when it comes to Nigeria. And it goes back to the point you made about identification. So we must first identify our people to be able to give them access to service delivery that are virtual. If we cannot do that, then that will be where the problem is.
Thank you so much for that. I think in Estonia they said there are only 3 things that you need to go to government. One is that if you are getting married or you are getting divorced, yes, physically, to go to the marriage registry, right? Every other thing you do it online. The second one is if you are buying property, physical property, you must be in their office as well. And the last one is when you are going to collect your data, your passport, your this, but eventually even that, they can now send it to you. Apart from that, you can virtually do anything in Estonia online. I think almost 50% of their population vote online, and all because their leader, when they got their independence from Russia in the 1990s, decided to look like, hey, there was a browser that came in, internet, we are not left behind, how do we catch up with technology? So as president, you know, he mobilized resources and pushed, and that's why Estonia is, I think, #1 right now in the world when it comes to e-government. So this proves that you have to have the highest buy-in at the highest level for e-government to really succeed. As we speak now, for access to e-government honestly is not really only internet, it's access to phone, for example, because you can do transactions on your phone using codes without even internet access. So in Nigeria we have how many? 151 million people that are connected, and 206 million according to latest statistics that have access to phone out of the 250 million. And out of that, only 80 million people that are on broadband, around roughly 44%. You are into service provision, into satellite. What do you think we can do? We are talking about the underserved and unserved areas, the 70 million I just mentioned, or a little above that do not have access to the internet. What would be the best and the fastest way to give them access to that technology, maybe using the satellite? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I would like to take it from where Wole stopped, that nothing can happen in e-government without access to technology. And you also made a point that countries such as Estonia. Now, one of the things that you would observe and see is that from the top 10 countries in e-government rating by the United Nations, even in the latest report of 2020, none of them has internet penetration that is lesser than 95%. As a matter of fact, you have a Denmark with an internet penetration of 99%, all right, as at June this year. So none of them has that. So what that clearly says is that what Wole has said is very correct. So the question is, how do we help? How do we solve this issue? Now, we understand clearly that infrastructure, the terrestrial services cannot get to these underserved or unserved areas. That is where satellite broadband comes in. For us at Udosat, we have launched the biggest satellite broadband capacity today that can offer 75 Gbps capacity over the world. And going by the recent development, we have also invested in new satellites that will bring in more capacity next year. So satellite is the technology that we can leverage on to deliver service and bring on board those that are in the rural areas. And for us, what we do is to partner with companies such as Konnect, look out for the rural telephony companies, as already mentioned, so that they can leverage on the satellite capacity that we have to connect the unconnected, and that is the only way we can do it. Now, what would be the result of this? It is stated by the World Bank that 80% of the world's GDP is going to come from the urban areas. Now, if you look at Nigeria and we take the 80% from the urban areas, let's take the 80% of our total GDP of about $500 billion. So if you look at that, for the sake of mathematics, let's just use 10%, to be safe. So we are talking about $50 billion. So we can easily estimate that $50 billion is going to come from the rural areas. The $50 billion we are talking about, can we do away with them? The answer is no. We need to incorporate them. Government needs to get tax, from them. So this $50 billion alone that we're expecting from the rural areas is more than the GDP of other countries within the West African, nations. So it underscores the importance of connecting those that are in the rural areas. The revenue is there. It's an opportunity to have $50 billion, from that particular axis. And that is where the last mile connection comes in. Today we can deliver 100 Mbps anywhere in Nigeria, even in the most remote part, of the country. So that is what we have brought on board to support, the e-government today. And lastly, I would just want to give an example of what the role satellites, played in election in Ukraine. For example, in Ukraine in 2012, we were able to deliver to connect more than 12,500 polling units, all right, electronically, to connect them to the HQ and support, elections. So for us, it's very important that satellites comes into play that last mile role to connect the unconnected. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the good intervention. Yes. Thank you. So the unserved can actually be reached, as you rightly said, via satellite. Though satellite is a bit more expensive, and those underserved and unserved areas, why the telecom companies is not that expensive. Okay. Why those telecom companies are not there is because they also consider their bottom line, return of investment, right? So if you give access to technology to those rural areas, they need devices to have access to that technology, and that devices have to be affordable. As you know that almost 80 million Nigerians are living below the poverty line, is it $2 per day? So we have a Nokia person here. So my question to you is, what can we do really as a nation to get devices that are really, really affordable so that Nigerians can get access to e-government services and any other service? And is there any global best practice when it comes to that in other countries? Have they done it to succeed? Sorry, I'm asking you this question and maybe.
Thank you so much for that question. First of all, let me just add also that Nokia is also an equipment manufacturer when it comes to radios, IP technology equipment, optical equipment. So it's quite a very big broad base, when you come to the mobile technology. So we cover all grounds. The mobile phone is something that is what most people know Nokia for. That's the brand that they started associating Nokia with. And that business also is, kind of a third-party managed base now with Nokia brand. But that said, having access to technology, okay, like in Nigeria today, as we all know, with the mobile subscription that we have, ranging about 170 million, if my data is correct, or more. About 10 to 20% of that, is within the smartphone space. So that means you have quite a number of subscribers who are not able to do, much more than what the feature phones will do for you, which is basically, make a call, have SMS, do SMS. So that is quite a problem when we start discussing e-governance, connecting people, getting people to be on that platform, to do business, the right way. So basically speaking, it comes in a way also with the government. What can the government do? What also can the mobile operators as well do in terms of having this collaboration to make sure that phones are accessible in terms of smartphones, people can have access to that. And if you look into the market today, there are quite a lot of cheaper phones, not just Nokia, but across the board. Other manufacturers are also on daily basis, yearly, monthly, bringing in mobile phones that are accessible, which with, if I call it a bit low amount of money, not going for the 100 or 200,000, and above, like when you go for the iPhones and all that, you can as well get some, smaller smartphones that will enable you, get online, do WhatsApp, and do some other things that, other smartphone users can as well do. So that collaboration is there. And that speaks to the point we're discussing in terms of the best practices. Because like you rightly said, looking at best practices for e-governance, you look at the people. Who do you want to serve? What do they need? Because this is where you need to build whatever services, whatever products that you're putting out there. And mobile access in terms of the phones becomes a part of it. And that is where, when the government is designing all this, collaborating with the mobile network operators, the services that they are bringing forward will as well help to see services that they roll out, because in other countries, you can have access to these smartphones without paying everything at once. You subscribe, you have monthly deductions that they take from you, and you already have these phones that you can have access, and do your business and do whatever you want to do. So here in Nigeria, those things as well need to be looked into, where the mobile operators, as they are rolling out their services, are looking at marketing strategies whereby they have these phones with small deductions. Either you are paying by recharging your phone, or you have your phone a way to get these payments out, as well with the banks, collaborating with them, so that you don't have to cough out 100,000, 200,000, or 50,000 at once to get access to this. And this will enhance, coming on board of the majority of the people. And e-governance is not just for, the technologically savvy people in the cities. You also need to look at the farmers. You also need to look at the people in those rural areas where actually you need to get the service to them, so that, like the micro-panelists here said, about 50 billion, to get from those rural communities. And this can come from agriculture, this can come from, manufacturing, positioning in those areas. So we need to look at it from that broad perspective, where you have that access for them, not just providing the infrastructure, but as well the, mobile phones, so that they can easily come on board without spending everything at once, and then this access can be there for them to be, really connected. Thank you.
That is the truth. When you want to buy a phone in Nigeria, you just have to do outright purchase. While in the rest of the world, you can get a loan and from the operators and you pay gradually. I think that will solve part of the problem. I don't know whether Professor Olainka is still online. One of the last panelists. Is he online so that... He's not online. He's online. He's not. Okay. So because I wanted to ask a question to him, but considering time, honestly, we have no time. We have, in fact, taken 10 minutes higher than what we are allocated. I don't know whether the audience have any question to the main speaker, lead paper, or to the panelists, or to any one of us. Does anyone have any question quickly so we can, or any intervention on this session? Okay. In the absence of any question, I just want to thank the organizers of this event. Thank you so much for all bringing us together. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to us. Thank you, Baba.
Yeah. Can we have something for everybody, and including those who are on the high table right now? Can we give them a round of applause? These are men.